What's up, everybody? Today, we sold the Miata like a week ago, maybe 5 days ago. It's been a weird 5 days because I don't have a car. But I was expecting the car to arrive that I got this week, but it's being delayed um, another week. So supposedly it's shipping out today. And supposedly it will be here Thursday or Friday of next week. And that means that we are essentially carless for another week. So, with that said, I'm going to just go ahead and announce the kind of car I got. And so, we're going to meet up at the computer and I'm going to show you the different options that I had and what I ended up getting. So, let's go over there and do that.
All right. So we're at the computer now. Let's go through the options of the cars that I saw that I was heavily debating. Now, before I get into the cars, is I was actually considering a R34 GTT. Now, an R34 GTT, if you look at all the other examples that I have here, it was something that I was considering because of the fact that it is rear-wheel drive and it has, so it's not, obviously, it's not the RB26 DETT, which is a twin turbo 2.6 liter inline six. Now, obviously, that's not the engine that was in this car. It was a RB25 Neo, which is a stronger version of the RB25 with the turbo. So it's still a turbo engine. It's still a RB, but it's not a RB26. So I did consider it. It was rear-wheel drive. Every other car except for two examples are rear-wheel drive. Actually, three examples are rear-wheel drive. So this is what I had debated. Some of these cars sold before I sold the Miata, so therefore they weren't even an option after the Miata was sold. But there is these are the options. So first, we'll start off with this. So all the S15 Silvias are Spec R. So let's just get that out of the way. I was looking for Silvias with the turbo, so I didn't want anything that was converted to Spec R with the 5-speed. I wanted a 6-speed with the Spec R turbo in there. So we have this blue Silvia S15, and it sold before I sold the Miata, but it was listed at around 28 grand. And it had over 100,000 miles. Then there was this white S15. No, actually, this one's still available, but this one was about the same price, 28 grand. It's still available if anybody wants it. I don't even remember who the seller was, to be honest. I can probably look it up. I think it was JDM Motors Inc. or something like that. I think is what it was called. So this one, white, pretty clean. It did have racing bucket seats already. As you can see, intercooler. I mean, it's pretty stock looking, but it has some modifications done to it, which I was looking for the least modified vehicles as well. Then I also saw this one, also heavily modified, but it was a lot cheaper. It was like 26 or 27 grand. Also a Spec R, still available. Actually, might have been 28 grand. Here's this one. You can see this one says JDM Super Sports Inc. Maybe the other one wasn't that. I'm not sure what the other one was, to be honest. But yeah. So also really clean on the outside. It did have an exhaust system that was a dual exhaust, which I didn't like, so that would have been taken off and replaced immediately. But this one essentially also didn't make the list. It was on this list, but it didn't make the final cuts. Then there was, of course, these are all blurry. The person that took these pictures took them vertical, so it didn't look very well. So this is a GTR, R32 GTR. It did have minor modifications, but for the most part, it was pretty stock. And they were asking about 41. This was out of price range, but I was like, maybe if I wait it out, I'll be able to buy it. And if I can go a little bit longer without driving the car, I'll be all right. So this one obviously did not make the list, the cut either. Then we have this red one, which now it's zooming in way too much. This red one, which if I were to get an R32 GTR, a red one would be the one. Now, this red one here is not modified I think it has a racing seat, it has a bucket seat, and I think this one also had um, a new radio. I think that's what it was. But other than that, it's pretty stock. And they were asking a little bit more for this one again. I was just like, if I could just wait it out, maybe I'll do it. But at the same time, I could not do that. I could not spend that much money on a car and still have student loans. So I'll pay off those things before I get anything else. So maybe after student loans are paid off and I'm in a bigger house or something, my priorities will already be met. So I could be like, well, I could get an R32 GTR now. So a red R32 or a blue R32 are the options if I were to ever get an R32, and they would have to be a GTR. Now, if it was an R34, I could do a GTT, but there's no sense when you can get an R32 GTR for cheaper than an R34 GTT. And an R33 GTR is also around the same price as an R34 GTT, so it doesn't make sense to not get a GTR. Then there's this option. Now, this one has a R34 conversion to the front end already. This is actually a Stagea. So a Stagea is a wagon Skyline, right? However, this particular one here is the 260 RS Altech edition, which is the one that has all-wheel drive and also has the RB26 DETT engine from the factory. That's crazy. This is wild to me. This is a GTR wagon essentially, which is why it has a GTR front end conversion already done to it, because somebody said, well, if I already have a GTR wagon, might as well put GTR on it. And this thing, if it's about the same price as the R32 GTR, the first one that I showed you, but it's crazy because of the fact that it's an R34 GTR wagon. And so they say that the engine that's put in this is from the R33 GTR, which is essentially the same engine with minor modifications that were done to the engine to get to the R34 engine. But either way, it's RB26 DETT. So this thing is wild. This thing is crazy. I would have So the other thing about this is it has room for 3 in the back instead of room for 2, like all the other vehicles that I've shown. So technically, this would have been a better buy because it would have left room for one more person in the car, because it's a wagon and therefore wider and has a whole seat in the back. So maybe in the future, this will be something that I look into, because you don't see these often. You don't see, honestly, I don't know what the number is. Let me look it up. I don't know what the number of our 2260 RS Altech. Um, so there was 1,734 Nissan Stagea 260 RS Altech models produced between 1997 and 2001. So that's pretty limited, if you ask me, considering it's less than 2,000 made, and the chances of all 2,000 or all 1,700 or whatever still kicking is very slim. So I would say probably half of them are probably gone already. So you're probably looking at 600, 900, some 600, 900 cars out there that are exactly like this, and then the colors are also. So it could be essentially a very limited car. So maybe this would be something I consider in the future, because I assume eventually this will go up in value because of what it is. But I don't think many people know about the 260 RS Altech Stadius. So then here's the back end, by the way. So it has not terrible. It has a different looking back end because it's a wagon, so it doesn't have the Skyline look in the back. I'm sure somebody probably did a conversion or something to make it look like that, but I think it looks fine, to be honest. Um, it's a Stagea. It's not a Skyline at the end of the day. So this one, pretty nice. Obviously, all the stickers would have to come off, but it's already sold. It's sold before I can even look at it. But I seen one that just got posted a few days ago. I think they were asking 32 for it, but it still had the Stagea front end, which I don't care about the GTR conversion front end. I don't mind the Stagea front end, but yeah. So super cool. So all these cars I've already said none of these made the cut. So which one made the cut? Now, there's one car that I did not show on here, which was a RX-7. It was a blue RX-7. Well, they were asking 31 grand, but it was coming from Japan. So at the end of the day, I would have had to probably spend another 2 grand on shipping and probably another 8 grand on. Yeah, it wouldn't have been worth it. But it was a Affinity RX-7 from '96, and it was blue. But other than that, had already had some modifications done to it, but it was light modification, so it was pretty clean looking. But again, I was trying to look for things that were lightly modified. If it had no modifications, even better. So what did I pick? And the answer has been in front of you this entire time. You just haven't paid attention because I have if Miata is always the answer, and the RX-7 is essentially the younger brother to the Miata, why wouldn't the RX-7 be the answer as well? So I went with the RX-7 that was super clean, pretty much stock except for it had an exhaust system. So we're going to go through all these pictures and land on this RX-7 here. This RX-7 is in brilliant black, super clean. I think they buffed it and stuff like that when it arrived from Japan, but super clean RX-7. Let's see. Let's talk about what it has. So let's go to the last picture here. So it was auction grade 4B. So grade 4 is for the exterior, grade B is for the interior. It has 46,000 kilometers, which ends up being a roughly 28,000 miles. So obviously, it has the 13B, the 2-rotor engine. It has 5-speed manual transmission. This one does come with aftermarket coilovers. I'm not really sure which ones. He said possibly the Tanes. I'll have to look because I'm not a huge fan of Tanes. Stock steering wheels, stock shift knobs, 17-inch wheels. Air conditioning works. Does have an aftermarket radio, but everything else is factory. Now, going through this is the engine bay, super clean engine bay. The only things that we'll do this as time comes through or times go on. So we want to make this as reliable as possible because, as you all know, rotaries do have an issue with overheating. So we want to make sure that it doesn't ever have any issues with overheating. So intercooler, radiator, air intake, stuff like that make it essentially better for cooling. And then there's also a air separator tank, which is plastic from the factory. So we'll have to make that metal or aluminum is what they sell them at. So these are all things that we'll have to do. And then there's the wheels, right? So it said 17-inch alloy wheels. What wheels are those? Well, if you all look into the history of the RX-7 or Mazda in general, so Mazda Speed and Ray's essentially, or Mazda and Ray's essentially teamed up to create some wheels. And one of the wheels they created was these wheels right here, which was, I think they're called the MS-01. Lemans. I don't know how to pronounce that, to be honest. It's a French word. But essentially it came from a car that had 4 rotors. And yeah. So it was one of what car was it? I don't even know how to pronounce this, to be honest. Le Mans 787B. Is it Le Mans? Lehman's? I can't tell you, y'all. So it's a 787B. I'm sure people have used this car in racing games. So the 787B was essentially a car that Mazda made, and it won a lot of races in the early 90s, and therefore they made these wheels that were replicas of the wheels that were on the car, the 787B. So these are the Mazda Speed or MS-01 Le Mans edition. So these particular ones are 17-inch ones. You do have, I go 16, 17, and 18 inches. These are 17-inch ones. They do look pretty clean. They probably need to be refinished. And the car is in great condition. I don't have any pictures of the interior, but the back seats work. The back seats don't have any scratches in them. What's one thing that I notice in a lot of RX-7s is because they're leather back seats, they did get scratched up pretty easily. And all the ones that I saw that were cheaper or around the same price all had cuts in the back seats, which I didn't like. And some even had cuts in the front seats, which I didn't like. So this one has no cuts inside. and pretty clean on the outside. I'll probably have to repaint this lip here because it looks faded. I don't even know if it was ever painted, to be honest. I don't think most people paint that. So I'll probably paint it the brilliant black that's on the car, and just to make it all cohesive, make it all look good. And yeah, this is the car. By the time you see this video, the car would have already been shipped to me. It's coming from California. And yeah, yeah. RX-7, y'all. So it's gonna be nice. I mean, like all these other cars, they were great. And they were around the same price, those in the budget, except for the R32s. They were a little bit over budget. And then obviously I couldn't even get this one, but I was looking at a bunch of cars. These were obviously the ones that I made the list. So why the S15s? When I never really talked about S15. So S15s are really great cars, to be honest. Most people like Silvias in general, not just the S15s, but the S15 I like the body style a little bit better. So the Silvias are great, and the engines are reliable. But at the end of the day, RX-7. So while if I ever got to a point where this YouTube channel grew like immensely, I wouldn't mind having an S15. I wouldn't mind having RX-7, R32 GTR. I wouldn't mind having all these cars, to be honest. But I'm not I'm not the Stradman, y'all. I don't have a 18 billion car garage, y'all. So I can't do that. He's obviously been doing this for a very long time. I remember watching the Stradman when he still does this, but he was car watching. Like he was chasing people down. He wasn't. Whenever I started watching, he wasn't living in his car anymore. But he was. Whenever I started watching, I think he had just started living with Burlacker. So yeah, that was a long time ago, yo. Long time ago. So there you have it. That's the car I chose. RX-7 in brilliant black with 28,000 miles roughly. So that's gonna be nice. Right-hand drive, obviously, because it came from Japan. And those wheels I don't even know if I want to keep them on there because the wheels themselves, because they're special edition wheels, if you go look on eBay or anywhere, even used, they're about $3 or $4 because they're special edition wheels. But if I can refinish them and I can make them look pretty, I'll probably leave them on. But I also don't want to get them all messed up, to be honest. So, but obviously it needs to be lowered. So if it's on coilovers, it should have lowered a little bit more in the back and the front. I think the front might be a little bit better than the back, but we'll have to check what happens when it gets here. So there you go. The next video will be me showing you the RX-7. There you go. Probably. I might have a video in between testing out somebody else's car first. But yeah, super clean. Hopefully. I haven't really seen it in person. There you go.
So you guys saw what I got. It's pretty awesome. But you should all have expected that. I don't know why anyone would expect something different than what I got, considering that's what I've been talking about for like a year now. I don't know. Has it been a year? It's been like 34 months. It hasn't been that long. But that's essentially where we're at. And Miata is no longer the answer, per se, because I no longer have a Miata to say it is the answer. So nice upgrade, huge upgrade. Couldn't thank enough the person that bought the Miata, and I couldn't thank the Miata enough for being such a good, reliable car for 5 years and essentially making money. Because that's one thing that I try to explain to people is if you can buy a car and not cost you any money and you make money on it, then why not buy the car, right? So that's where we're at. So with the Miata, I essentially drove it for free because I don't even think I spent what I got on it on top of what I bought it for in 2021. I don't think I spent on that on the car in gas, maintenance, or anything like that. So that's a pretty good return on investment. And this car is going to be an even better return on investment because I feel like RX-7s are going to go up in value. I anticipate maybe it'll be like twice the price in about 5 to 6 years. So I figured I'd go ahead and get it now instead of waiting 5 or 6 years to have to pay 2 times more. So there you go. So with that said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that I put out in the future. As always, peace.